नमस्कार दोस्तों, पिछले संडे की तरह आज भी आपके साथ हाजिर हूँ। धनंजय गोखले जी चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट हमारे साथ है और अकाउंटिंग कंसेप्ट के बारे में हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं। इसलिए आज एक इम्पॉर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट पे उनसे मैं सवाल जवाब करूँगा और आपके दिल में जो सवाल है उनके सही जवाब क्या हो सकते हैं ये देखने की हम कोशिश करेंगे। आप जानते हैं कि पिछले कुछ सालों में अर्बन कोऑपरेटिव बैंकों ने बहुत सारे नॉन बैंकिंग एसेट कन्वर्ट किए और वो नॉन बैंकिंग एसेट इन सेटलमेंट ऑफ क्लेम लेने के बाद में जो बीआर एक्ट का सेक्शन 9 है उसके हिसाब से इन सेटलमेंट ऑफ क्लेम से एसेट एक्सेप्ट किए, एक्वायर किए और उसके साथ में उन्होंने प्रिंसिपल तो बोरोर का रिकवर कर ही लिया, लेकिन जो इंटरेस्ट बुकिंग था वो भी इंटरेस्ट बुकिंग उन्होंने करवा दिया। अब रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया क्या कर रही है, जो इंटरेस्ट आपने उस वक्त अगर लिया होगा तो उसको रिवर्स करने के लिए रिजर्व बैंक बोल रही है, क्योंकि उनका ये कहना है कि अनलेस यू रिकवर द इंटरेस्ट इन कैश यू कैन नॉट बुक दैट इंटरेस्ट। तो इसकी अकाउंटिंग इंटरेस्ट किस तरह से होगी, क्योंकि अगर मैं इंटरेस्ट बुक नहीं करूँगा तो रखूँगा कहाँ पे। ऐसे कुछ सवाल है नॉन बैंकिंग एसेट के बारे में जो हम धनंजय गोखले जी से उसका क्लैरिफिकेशन लेंगे। I will try to understand what the urban cooperative banks need to do. धनंजय जी, मुझे सबसे पहला सवाल ये है कि कमर्शियल बैंकों के अलावा अर्बन कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स आर आल्सो रिसोर्टिंग to reducing their NPAs, helping them reduce their NPAs. They are acquiring the properties mortgaged to them. Normally, this happens in case of a landed property. It doesn't happen in case of hypothecated goods. When they acquire, it is done after conducting 3 or 4 auctions. When the auctions fail, in the fourth auction, the bank bids and acquires the property, and then they recover the non-performing account by debiting their other assets account and creating the interest component there to P&L. Because I virtually believe it is an Isatle kind of transaction. There is a sale, there is a purchase. The typical situation is the seller is same and purchaser is same. So I am presuming that all earlier auctions have undertaken, and now they are acquiring this property. So what are the cautions and what are the advice you would like to give to the urban property banks in terms of non-banking assets?
Yeah. So as far as the non-banking asset is concerned, typically the transaction takes place, as you rightly said, that after 2 or 3 auctions are failed. So ultimately, bank enters into that auction as a last bidder, and they acquire the property. Property will be always a immovable property because that's what has been prescribed in BR Act. You cannot acquire a movable property. Now, as far as accounting is concerned, the kind of accounting which is expected is that you need to book those non-banking assets at net book value, and not at the price at which you are acquiring the asset. Just to give an example, suppose you have say 10 crores of ledger balance which is outstanding, and let's say 50% is your BDDR which is created. So your net book value on that particular date is say 5 crores. Assets you have acquired are at say 10 crores. Means that is the bidding price at which you have acquired the assets. So you have given a certificate to the borrower also that there are no further dues are there, because you have acquired that at an agreed price, because it's a kind of agreement between buyer and seller, wherein the buyer is bank and the seller is borrower. Now once you do that,
yes, seller doesn't become borrower, because seller, the property owner doesn't turn up at all.
No, that is right. What I'm saying is only from point of view of legal point as to change of ownership happens. So when I'm saying seller, typically what I mean to say is that borrower property is acquired by the buyer is the bank. So even though the bank enters into the agreement also, ultimately the ownership of the property gets transferred. Now when RBI is taking a stand, prior to that, let's understand the accounting concept. Now what RBI is saying is, as far as any NP accounts are concerned, they are saying that the income should be based on realization concept. It applies squarely to any type of realization. So the realization concept is what is the crux of the matter. When we talk about realization as per the accounting concept, realization can be in kind and it can be also in cash. So accounting wise, it doesn't prohibit to take it in kind, because here we are talking about non-banking asset which is in kind, which is acquired in satisfaction of my claim. So in a way, it's a realization in kind. Now having said that, if you look at the RBI IRAC circulars, in commercial bank IRAC circular, they have given one example of realization in kind, that is related to the listed securities. So suppose a bank acquires a listed security in satisfaction of the outstanding amount, then on the date of acquisition, whatever is the market price of that security is there, that will be presumed to be realized, and bank can either continue to hold or it can sell off that particular asset in the market also.
Whether the bank is allowed to book interest if it was in that
Yeah,
value,
in that case, it's a realization. So, for
how
example,
can there be a differentiation
yeah,
in
now
this
coming to
case?
that point, now when we talk about marketable, the word used is not marketable, it is listed. There is a difference in marketable and listed. So let's presume that it is an unlisted security. Then this benefit is not available. It's only for listed securities wherein this benefit is given, that too only for scheduled commercial bank. Because this concept cannot exist in urban cooperative bank wherein you acquire a listed security. It's a remote possibility or a far stretched possibility. So that content is not there in the circular of a UCBs also.
There is
No,
basically no circular from Reserve Bank of India as far as this NBA transactions are
no,
concerned.
I'm coming to NBI. I was talking about only listed securities. So even that concept is not there. Now, when we compare this with immovable property, firstly, let's go logically and then we'll come to the theoretical part. Logically, when I'm having a listed security wherein the market value is derivable, I'm having an option to immediately, instantly sell it off and freeze that realization at that point. So, suppose my market value is say 5 crores of that security, I have an option to sell it at 5 crores or continue it at 5 crores as a book value. Now, if you compare that with immovable property, practically you cannot sell it off that asset because your earlier auctions have failed. So it's a demonstration which the bank is making in a way that, see, look at this asset, it is not sellable immediately. Since it is instantly not sellable, bank is acquiring and saying that in next 7 years I will try to sell it off. Now, once we reach to that kind of a logical conclusion, I cannot compare both things at par. Because in one case there is a ready market available, in other case market doesn't exist actually because there is a legacy of failed transaction. Now, the moment you have that legacy, it means that there is no certainty of realization. Now, as per accounting concept, whenever you don't have a certainty, you are not supposed to recognize any income. So, the way out in that is whatever is your net book value is there. So, taking the same example, 10 crore is my asset value, in the sense ledger value, 5 crores is the BDDR. Even if the agreement value is 10 crore, even if the stamp duty is paid on 10 crores, I need to carry it at 5 crores. And it doesn't stop at that level. At every periodic interval, I need to also verify that whether it is capable to generate 5 crore value or not. In the sense, I need to have a fair valuation of that 5 crore also done, because it might happen maybe 6 years down the line, there is a legal dispute or there is an encroachment wherein even if the asset was acquired at 10 crore, now the value might fall to 4 crores. So even that is something which a bank needs to do. Another point is that this is not a fixed asset for the bank, it is other asset. So it's neither current asset, it's not a fixed asset because you are not certain as to when you are going to sell it off. Now in that case, depreciation doesn't apply because otherwise what typically happens is the moment you acquire land and building component of that is subjected to depreciation, which will not have that impact for non-banking asset because it is not a fixed asset per se for the bank. So it will remain stagnant at that level. Now, as far as accounting is concerned related to income and other things, that the bank needs to wait till that asset gets realized and not before that. Again,
So the
applying
banks
the,
which have booked interest
yeah.
at the time of doing this NBA transaction, where they will park it, what kind of accounting interest they should be doing.
Now, if that has already occurred, means I'm presuming that that is already taken to P&L account, it's a kind of a rectification which a bank will need to do. Now, rectification will have exactly opposite effect of what was the wrong or incorrect entry was passed. So earlier bank has credited that to P&L account above the line. So now the bank has to debit that, saying that it's an interest reversal, and then take an impact on your P&L account.
So
And
this will become mandatory if the banks have earlier done
yeah.
NBAs and nobody has pointed out any objection on that.
It's more of not like someone should need to point out a mistake. I will give you an example. Suppose you have done some incorrect entry, and if you realize that it's an incorrect entry, you will always rectify it. So, for example, if I passed a accounting entry, so instead of 1 crore, I have debited a P&L account with 2 crores. I will not wait for someone to give me a kind of a query or a discrepancy. I need to rectify it on myself. So whatever has been done in the past, that's a past tense.
There are no RBI guidelines, therefore all banks are doing different kind of practices, and now they are facing a lot of difficulties
Yeah.
in these areas. Uh, Do you feel that NBA is one of the good method to reduce NPAs, whether settlement of claim you acquire a property, your principal value of the loan account gets extinguished, and then you get breather from the provisioning.
Yeah.
But the Reserve Bank of India 2009 circular says that you should not acquire. If acquired, sell it off within
7 years.
7 years.
Correct.
Extendable further at the choice of Reserve Bank of India by 5 years.
Right.
So technically, you have 12 years to sell off the
Yeah.
property,
Yeah.
and 12 years is a big time.
Yeah.
So whether banks should resort to this kind of
Yeah.
activity
Actually, bank should resort to non-banking asset only if they are really certain of selling off in near future. See, the advantage is that you make that borrower redundant as far as the recovery process is concerned, because now the bank is sole owner of that and you don't have to really bother about that. So that is the advantage, that bank on its own, they are the owner, they can take the call and they can conclude the transaction. Now, as far as reduction of NPAs is concerned, it's a good tool, but again to repeat, this cannot be the reason that the bank should go for NBA. So first they need to ascertain that whether it makes sense in going into NBA, because otherwise they might get caught into a, on a wrong footing, because they will absolve the borrower to the extent of price at which the NBAs are acquired. And suppose there are any legal hurdles are there, like maybe disputed property or something, they will end up in getting into that issue. So if they are certain that they are able to sell it off in next couple of years, that's a good method. But it's not really an NPA management technique, but it's more of a management call based on the facts that whether bank will be able to sell it off in next 7 years or not. If they are able to sell off, or if they are confident of that, nothing like it. But one thing which bank also needs to keep back of their mind, typically when NBAs are acquired, last 1 or 2 years, the bank has already made a lot of efforts and the asset is not sold off in last 2 years, or maybe 1 year at least.
there have been
Yeah.
cases where the borrowers have objected to NPA
Yeah.
on the grounds of valuation. For
Yeah.
example, as you rightly said, you should acquire that at a net book value.
Yeah.
Borrower says my value of the property, my value property is around 15 crores,
Yeah.
and you have acquired it at 10 crores, and they have challenged it.
Yeah.
Many courts have given verdict in favor of the bank for this simple reason. While giving that verdict, borrower says that what will happen to interest. So
Yeah.
various courts have given a verdict where they say that interest is also required to be created.
Yeah.
Now here is a typical case where there are high courts in the country which want that the borrower's interest payment should be recognized separately and plea should be given.
Yeah.
And here is an accounting request.
Yeah.
And therefore the bank saying that once the asset becomes other asset, instead of loan asset is another asset. For other assets, where are the IRAC guidelines which are applicable? I mean,
Yeah.
these are the
Yeah.
confusing
Yeah, I
stances
will come
which
to
the
that
banks
part.
are
We'll take the same
taking.
example, like ledger balance is a 10 crore, 5 crores is a BDDR, and let's presume IR OIR is a 2 crores, and asset value is a 12 crores. Means that is the price at which the bank is acquiring that. Borrower might be claiming that it is at say 20 crores. First thing is that banks never acquire a non-banking asset in the first auction. Typically, every bank will wait for 1 or 2 auctions to fail. Third or fourth auction, a bank is kind of forced into getting into that acquisition. So that's the reality. Now, presuming that the bank has acquired it at say 12 crores, the certificate which the bank will issue to the borrower is a realization certificate to the extent of 12 crores. By saying that your dues were 12 crores and we have received 12 crores, so there are no further dues. But let me take another example. Suppose acquisition price is at 10 crores. Bank will give him a certificate only of 10 crores and 2 crores are still receivable from him,
Despite the
despite the
acquisition of
non-banking
property.
asset. So because it's not necessarily that every time I will have an auction price which is more than my receivable. Now the moment I get it, even if it is getting challenged in any court or any forum, when it is auction, everyone has an option actually. If the borrower is saying that my price is high, there was ample time available for him to liquidate that asset and give it to the bank. So these type of cases are likely to fail because he has to first prove that it was undersold.
So typically, here one situation that is occurring is that banks will take 3 or 4 auctions within a period of 6 months.
Yeah.
Presuming the same example that the principal due is 10 crores and auction price is 15 crores, ultimate price for auction was 12 crores. So 12 crores, borrower will say that you have still booked it at a lower price. My principal due is 10 crores. Am I supposed to pay him back the 2 crores?
So principal plus interest.
Yeah.
Suppose 1 crore is the interest.
So 1 crore I have to pay him back.
You have to pay him back. The reason being, now you are giving a realization certificate. It's as good as you are saying that 12 crores are realized
So
from.
if it is for a lower value, you don't have to pay him back.
Correct. If it is on a higher side,
Yeah.
technically you are liable to pay.
You are liable to pay. That is one part of it.
Right.
Second part of the story is the banker gets the entire property transferred in its own name
Correct.
in all land extract records everywhere.
Yeah.
And say 5 years down the line after doing NDA, the property fetches a value of 20 crores.
Yeah.
Now, as against the principal dues of 10 crores, you acquired it at 12 crores, 2 crores you have paid to the borrower. Subsequently, at the time of realization, you recovered 20 crores.
Yeah.
Should the bank pay him 8 crores?
No. Later on, see, actually, the relationship with the borrower, as far as the property is concerned, it has ceased. So, taking the same example, presuming that you have booked at net book value of 5 crores, because 5 crores was BDDR, so net book value is 5 crores. Against that, if the bank fetches 20 crores, 15 crore belongs to the bank.
Borrower has got no connectivity.
No right. In the sense, he has ceased to be the owner of that particular property. So, risk reward belongs to the bank. So, even if it is at a lower side also, taking another case, unfortunately, suppose the bank is able to recover 4 crores only. Maybe, because of legal dispute or maybe some land records, there are certain reservations which are coming. So, it's not fetching the value of 10 crores. Maybe after 3-4 years, some certain things might change. So, if it is received, say 4 crores, then 1 crore will be lost for the bank. So, whatever is attached to that property, that belongs to the bank, whether it is profit or loss.
There is one more question that has been raised is that once you settle the claim of the borrower, for whatever the dues, let's forget about the mathematics. You are supposed to report to the CIBIL.
Yeah.
So, what should be the CIBIL report in such case? Account closed, account settled. How is that? How you?
It's account settled actually, not really closed.
So you have to
inform that.
Settled. Now here is a borrower who will say that I have paid you more than what your dues are. How do you say it is settled?
Because it's not, he's not paying you anything beyond his outstanding amount. See, for example, 12 crores are receivable from him. You have received 12 crores. And settled is the reason because you have practically settled his dues in kind. So it's not paid actually.
There is one typical question. As you rightly said that you are acquiring this property simply because you are not in a position to dispose it of. Whether borrowing, willing, unwilling, let us keep it aside. Now, if within 7 years bank fails to sell this, it can justify the extension of period of 5 years. Even after 12 years, suppose if the property is not sold, what the bank should be doing?
See, practically there is no way out than to approach the regulator because BR Act or from regulator side, there are no further guidelines beyond 12 years. That will become a kind of a tricky scenario actually because law doesn't support further extension.
Right.
Bank will be, you can say, at a very critical or weak ground to represent RBI as to why it was not sold in 12 crores. 12 crores is a big span.
12 years.
12 years, sorry. And another thing is that, which I just want to add up, little diversion from what we are talking about. In these 12 years, bank cannot rent out the property also. I'm just adding this part.
Question, I forgot
because non-banking assets per se are ultimately assets of the bank. And banks are not, they cannot lease out.
Start earning from this bank, property.
Yeah. So, in fact, I will add one more angle. Many times a non-banking asset is acquired. After acquisition of non-banking asset, let's presume that it is having a lease or tenancy rights which are inbuilt into that, which happens at a time. You have a big, huge, building which is given as a security. There are tenants. So technically, tenants cannot, bank cannot take that, rent in there.
Rights.
Yeah. So then, what the bank is required to do is, firstly, they have to inform the RBI. My personal view is that better the bank shouldn't accept that rent and get into court litigation with the tenant so that the property is vacated, rather than accepting it by saying that it's a legacy.
There is already one Supreme Court judgment which says that while acquiring the property for creating any charge, it should be non-encumbered and clean policy. Even if tenants are there, you should not acquire that. Are the indirect references which are coming from that angle? Because that's where our legal system is not that strong. उनको निकालना कोई आसान बात होती नहीं है. Anyway, thanks talking about India. There were several questions which people wanted to know. I have tried to answer. If at all there are any questions which are still left in respect of India, please shoot it out with the mail that is provided in the description, and I'll be happy to escalate the same to Dhananjay Gokhale. Thank you,
Yeah,
Dhananjay. Thank
thank
you
you.
so much.